Hello, everybody. Hi. I should be able to make it through this, but we'll see. Excuse me. So today is the girl with the glass. So I'm gonna be using a few decks. One second. Got a little hair on my tongue. What's the matter? Cat got your tongue. So this is how we're gonna set these up. So let me get rid of me for a second. And oops. So oops. Oh, come on. Oh, I'm muting the mic. Sorry. Oh, and that was too loud. Okay. This is what I meant to do. Here we go. So we're going to be using the Angelarium, also the Damon Tarot, with the Light and Dark Weaver Tarot, and the Pride Tarot. This is like inner shadowy or a shadowy aspect. This is inner light or a lighter aspect. At the top, a lot of times I use this deck. It comes out very not what you would expect or I would expect. And then this is unifying. So it's kind of sort of about the heart a little bit, right? And the different influences. In the movie, the girl with the glass has an expression that the painter can't quite capture. And the movie sort of takes you on a little bit of a journey of discovering what her expression is and what her expression means in different times, right? And so there are times when she is the very altruistic, I think is the word that I want. Let's ask Siri because I love doing that. Hey Siri, define altruistic.
Altruistic means showing a disinterested and selfless concern for the well being of others, unselfish.
Unselfish. Okay. Why did that? Hold up. Hey Siri, define altruistic, please.
Altruistic means showing a disinterested and selfless concern for the well being of others, unselfish.
Disinterested and selfless concern for the well being of others. Why is it disinterested though? She does some good and then she plays some she plays some pranks. And it's when she needs to, right? It's in reaction. So that's why there's both elements here. Um and it's also her own sort of journey with her discovering her expression herself, basically, right? So there is no formal spread today. I've already given all of these a little bit of a shuffle before, but oh, there's reversals in this deck. I forgot. This is probably the only deck I have right now that has reversals in it, intentionally has reversals in it. Um, all right, and so I'm going to turn this back off, and then we'll get into this. Don't know what this is yet, but we're gonna get into it. I think I'm gonna do one and then two. Also, I don't know where my near three readers are. It's like 2 3/4 magnification. So I got 1.5 and 1.25. Hopefully, I can read the book. I should be able to. Oh, where did they go? Well, I had them. Oh, they're right there. Okay, nice. So let's see what's going on. Oh, there we go. Oh, a little bit of mystery, a little bit of intrigue. Love it, I guess. I wish I had a little more space, a little more room. Also, last night, have you ever like? I feel like last night I ran across someone in the astrals in the dream space that I haven't really seen in the dream space for a minute, and so it was a bunch of little dreams. Also, I was struggling to get out of bed because the bed was feeling the bed was feeling so good. I kept drifting off to sleep. And it's like I feel like we caught up on all the astral activity we ain't necessarily had question mark in a minute. It was interesting. It was very random, um, but cool, I guess. It's like seeing someone that you haven't seen in a long time, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, we should catch up." It's like, yeah, well, let's make a trip out of it. I was like, okay, I'm down for that. On a side note, I don't feel the need to go on vacation as intensely as I did before, which makes sense because I went on vacation. And I didn't really do much, but I also did enough. Okay. So who's the light side of this? We're going to wait for that until after we do this. For this, I'm going to get 3 to clarify. And we'll just sort of see. So it's going to be 1, 3, 5. So one of those, 3 of these, and then 5 of the Pride Tarot. Now the Pride Tarot, it is what it is, right? Like there are multiple influences and aspects that we carry along, but there is sort of a unifying principle of all of those different aspects within us, right? And there are there are many ways to interpret something. There are many factors that may sort of lead to the same conclusion or the same behavior. And so it's the girl with the cup. She's the Queen of Cups in the movie tarot. She's pre-High Priestess energy, so she ain't necessarily going to be easy. Let me give it 2 more, and then I'll do top, middle, and bottom. Okay. Oh, snap. Bottom of the deck is the Ruler of Wands. That King of Wands energy. Again, Ruler of Wands came out in the other deck last time I used these. And what was that one called? That one was the April Fool's reading. It was like the April Fool who dances in the showers of maize flowers or something like that. Because it was that, like, I think that was Matariel, and it was about, it rains for a reason, rain leads to growth. Because it rains in April, there's flowers in May type of energy. So I'm going to put these up here. I think this was top, middle, bottom. The order doesn't matter. Now let's come back over here and get one of these. I'm going to timestamp in the description box when I get into the cards. I'm actually going to type that now. What else about the girl holding a glass? Well, I don't want to talk too much about any of these characters, just in case you ever watch the movie. Introduction, and then into the cards. Into the cards. Yep. And so that's basically it. The girl with the glass, there's a painting that a character has been mastering for years, for decades, I believe. But there's one character in the painting whose expression he can't capture. And he says that it seems like sometimes her expression morphs or shifts or changes, and he's like, she's mocking me. And then, they theorize about her expression and sort of like what she's going through. And so, throughout the movie, it's unfolded and unraveled. And again, it means different things at different times. Sometimes. There we go. Ooh, Zadkiel. Angel of Mercy. Who at the bottom of the deck over here? Bina, Angel of Knowledge. Mercy and knowledge. There's a justice energy here between mercy and knowledge. And the knowledge is that, I could punish you for doing this or for doing that, but I also understand the conditions that led to you doing this or thinking that this was a viable option or whatever, right? And so, true justice in this situation wouldn't be sort of inflicted upon the individual. It would be inflicted upon the source of what caused this individual to XYZ. Right? It's also just it's almost like a boys will be boys type of energy, but children will be children, right? And not boys will be boys when boys are out there doing things that they shouldn't be doing, right? But it's like, when you're young and immature and you do things that you wouldn't do if you were more experienced or seasoned. So let's give this one 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 more. Sure, I'll take it. The Hierophant. Of course it's the Hierophant. Bottom of the deck over here is the Seeker of Swords, which is that Page of Swords energy that came out yesterday, right after the Mother of Cups. Step 1 of the gnome's journey. Seeker of Swords. Now in this deck, there's an energy here of crossing paths, right? As you're going on your ascension journey, there's an energy that's descending upon you and upon the earth. And you meet it along the way. And it's almost like it causes a little bit more... Sorry. It's a convective energy, right? Convective energies are those that accelerate transfer properties. They accelerate equilibrium because something is moving. If it were stagnant, if it were stationary, then it's like it would have to wade through the muck to get to the surface. But it's fluid water. It's easier to swim in water than it is to swim in mud, right? For people. But what it does is it also causes a lot of almost like things being shaken up or things being stirred up. But again, that makes sense because we're reaching a new equilibrium. And it's like, if we speed up traffic to get everybody in the position that they need to be in 5 minutes rather than in like an hour, right? I do feel like, though, it can be easy to overlook things sometimes in this energy. But going back to that children will be children, it's like Spirit knows that you're not going to understand or comprehend what you don't understand or comprehend. So you don't necessarily have to worry about knowing everything. Just do your best and continue on in your journey, on your process. And it's almost too like there are certain things that you're supposed to experience before you develop the knowledge and the awareness. And then as you mature a little more, those things mean things that they didn't necessarily mean before. It's bringing into the woods, and I know things now, many wonderful things that I'd never known before. And then at the end she's like, isn't it good to know a lot? I'll just read it. And a little bit not. Right? She's like, and I know things now, many wonderful things I had never known before. Yeah, I don't know. Basically, it's like, she was naive. She got tricked by the wolf, Little Red Riding Hood. Little Red Riding Hood. I just talked about Little Bob Riding Hood the other night. Last night, actually. That's funny. But because of that experience, she knows now why her mother told her, straight through the woods, don't delay, the path is straight, you know it well. So that when the wolf comes along, they're like, oh, but look at all the pretty flowers, look at everything that you're missing, And she's like, isn't it good to know a lot, but a little bit not? Because that knowledge comes through experiences that may not be the greatest. And again, we're talking about the changing expression of the girl with the glass. So, makes sense. I think this is like a mercy that we need to have with ourselves too. Right? It's like you knew what you knew at the time that you knew it. Don't be too hard on yourself. You were a child. We're always children. We're always growing. We're always evolving. The Hierophant, the messenger in this deck. And the Queen of Swords just came out at the cut. Now the messenger is with the Emperor. Love that energy. And now... Oh, these got reversals. I forgot. The messenger is with the Page of Cups. So I'm gonna do this a few more times. Alright, one more. Ooh, that's the magician. Alright. Isn't it nice to know a lot and a little bit not? Oh, three more. Oops. Two more. Just put you right back there. One more. Ooh, the Nine of Swords. Ooh! Oh. That's perfect, because I said I wanted 5 cards, right? So we'll do these first. The Seven of Pentacles in reverse. The Seven of Cups in reverse. The Death in reverse. And the Three of Wands upright. I ended up going with 4 because I wanted the card from the bottom of the deck, but I pulled 2 from the middle, so. 2. I want 3 more. Oh, and I got 3. Nice. Okay. There we go. We have, what, 9 cards here? Bottom of the deck is the Four of Swords in reverse. The Four of Swords was at the top of the darker deck when I started shuffling. Also, the Four of Swords was featured yesterday. The Four of Swords featured yesterday, though, was us reaching that space of sort of alignment within our own soul, comfort and peace within us. It's the ability to create eyes in the middle of storms, to see when it's dark, you know. But it's in reverse here. A lot of these are actually in reverse. The cards that are upright, it's the Three of Wands, the Knight of Wands, and the Nine of Swords. Everything else is in reverse. That's interesting, though, because the Four of Wands came out yesterday as an energy of what we think we have to do, what we think we have to be in order to appear a certain way and to hold a certain energy to attract certain things, right? Going back to that mercy that we have with ourselves, again, I feel like with that, like, isn't it nice to know a lot but a little bit not? It's that maybe we're realizing more and more and more the ways in which we sort of stood in our own ways. And there's this energy of like, oh my gosh, like I'm so glad I see it now, or oh my gosh, I can't believe I was doing this before. But then, at least for me, it was a little bit like, wow, like I was really doing this. Okay, well, how do I change this? The first step, like knowing, is half the battle, right? So I'm gonna timestamp this now at like 18, 20, or 30. I'll just do 1820. I don't know why the War of 1812 just popped into my mind. I think the War of 1812 was against the French when they tried to come here, because 1776 was against the British. I don't know. Alright, so let's get into this. So we have the Nine of Swords here, and we also have the Pride card. The Nine of Swords is an energy of anxiety, typically. It's a card that can get lost in the darker parts of our own mind, right? Because I'm looking at her. She's right here. Okay, or we can just show her. And I'm looking at the top of her, like her hair, and then her body. And it's like she almost looked like a mushroom, like a really big mushroom. And it's that point where we start to almost in some ways become lost to the darkness. Or not even lost to like just darkness in particular, but when we, I guess you could say, overly identify with our thoughts, but when we get lost in them to the point where we kind of sort of get stuck and still and stagnant. Now, if those are more pleasant thoughts, then it's not necessarily going to be as bad. It's not necessarily going to be as difficult to handle or manage or deal with. If they're less pleasant thoughts, then it's going to be more difficult. It'll wear on us more. Neither one is necessarily great, because I don't think it's to be lost. When you're lost in the mind, it takes you out of the moment. And with the Pride card here, it's like there's that mental overwhelm in all areas of nearly all areas of life. Oh my gosh. One, two, three, four, five, six. So there's six here. So I'm going to take the Knight of Pentacles. I'm going to take the Knight of Wands out of it. And then we'll go through. One, two, three, four, five, six. So when it comes to life, we have the Seven of Pentacles in reverse. Right? These are basically going to be different anxieties that we have. And that's pretty much the beginning of the movie. Or closer to the beginning of the movie. The character hasn't yet started to really develop into all that she develops into, and so that's why it's so hard to read her expression in the beginning or at the top. So when it comes to life, there's the Seven of Pentacles in reverse. Seven of Pentacles in reverse speaks of like we've been cultivating or living a lifestyle that isn't conducive to our positive growth. It's the creation of habits and patterns. It's the cultivation of things that we don't necessarily like. Healing is the Nine of Wands in reverse. So with healing being the Nine of Wands in reverse, it feels like this arduous, never-ending sort of thing. And it can get a bit daunting. I feel like also, especially with this Nine of Swords energy, we can reach the point where it's like, you know what, this is never going to stop. I'm just going to get off here. Sunlight is the Seven of Cups in reverse. Sunlight being the Seven of Cups in reverse kind of sort of speaks to the previous two, because it's us trying to find levity, light, hope, joy in things that don't provide it, honestly. And it's the Seven of Cups energy, right? Looking for love in all the wrong places, looking for validation in all the wrong places. It's something that should come from within. Nature is death in the reverse. Nature being death in the reverse, it feels like the wheel is stuck on winter. And, you know, clarified by the Seven of Cups in reverse, the nights are the longest in winter. Also, nothing really grows in the winter, or what we associate with growth doesn't occur in the winter. There's nothing that we harvest really that grows in the winter, right? And so, with this death in the reverse, though, it's like it's trying to basically trigger you into a rebirth, but that rebirth hasn't been happening. Serenity is the Five of Pentacles in the reverse. This is a lack of peace, a lack of cohesion, a lack of harmony in the home specifically, especially in this deck. This is someone who's been kicked out of her home because of her being who she is, right? And then we see the argument between the parents or the figures inside the house. Maybe it's a disagreement on how it should have been handled. Maybe it's both of them being like, oh, we don't know how this happened. Now, Spirit is it's coming out with the Three of Wands upright. And so reading it this way, it's interesting that Spirit is the only thing that's upright, right? But again, it's kind of sort of taking me back to this death and reverse energy where it's trying to trigger a spring within you. It's trying to trigger a rebirth within you. But maybe you weren't necessarily... It takes me back to the situation yesterday. The situation yesterday actually makes sense, though, because the situation yesterday is because the girl holding the glass was who she was in the beginning. Like, and so that's this energy right here that it was like with the stingray and the magician. It's like we are aligning, but we're not aligning to what we want. That's why all of this is in reverse. Spirit, though, it's trying to put you in a position to move forward. It's almost asking you to see things in a completely different way. And with the Knight of Wands sort of holding the space of this Nine of Swords, it's like, you know, we want to move forward. We want more. It's like we're expanding mentally in terms of what we desire, maybe faster than we are expanding mentally in our ability to rationalize and comprehend complex thoughts and emotions. And it's quite simple, but it's complex because It's that mercy and knowledge energy that makes it difficult. Also, this Knight of Wands for me carries a message that's very different than any other Knight of Wands. It's very different for me than the traditional, what the Knight of Wands can come to mean, right? A lot of times the Knight of Wands is someone who moves in their own interests very speedily and hastily, and once they are fulfilled, they move on to the next thing. It's very hard to keep their attention. The Knight of Wands in this deck is about moving forward with the power of compassion. It's about understanding the power of compassion. It's also about bringing a light to subjects that are sort of dark and cast out to the side. It's about championing yourself or others who don't really have a voice. And with this Nine of Swords energy, eventually is going to tend to the 10, where all of this, it's like after this Nine of Swords hits the 10 of Swords, and all of this starts to go upright. And it starts to align with where Spirit is guiding you. And Spirit is guiding you in the direction that you want. But with all of this energy here, it's like, it feels like you yourself haven't really been cultivating it, growing it, doing anything to really get it. Not really. And I'm not saying not really to like invalidate whatever you are doing. And again, always take it as it resonates. It's not really because of that, going back to that alignment. It's like there are some things that are, it's off enough. Your calculations are off enough. It's like you forget a negative sign, you forget to carry the 2, and it gives you a completely different answer. It's like these little things in the machine that get it to operate in a completely different way. And so it feels like there's an energy here of making like very broad, or trying to make very broad and very grand changes to bring something about. But it's almost like, without the subtleties, you would continue to get the same result because there's still a 1 or a 2 somewhere that you're not carrying. There's still a sign that you didn't flip. It reminds me, I was talking about physics class. Physics is something to me that makes sense, but in the beginning I just could not get it. And I would do a physics problem over and over and over trying to get the right answer, and I would come up with like 5 different answers. And it's like, at least I should get the same wrong answer. Like, because I would start all over from the beginning. And I was like, I should at least get the same wrong answer like once or twice. But the fact that I didn't get the same wrong answer once or twice means that I was consistently doing more and more, catching more and more of my own mistakes. And again, it's the knowledge and the mercy of knowing that when you're a child, you have a limited amount of experiences to contextualize certain things, right? When you're 2 years old and your ice cream hits the floor, that's the most tragic thing that's happened to you in your life. When you're 10 years old and your best friend moves away, that's the most tragic thing that's happened to you in your life. As you get older, as you acquire and accumulate more experiences, the it's like it's always relative, and so it's constantly shifting and changing. Right? That's why it's important for this death energy to go upright when it comes to nature. Because something about this is evolving and changing. When it's infantile, when it's juvenile, when it's not fully developed, it carries a different nature, right? It's like the dragonfly or the butterfly. Frogs, the beginning of their life, they're a completely different creature than they are by the end of their life. And by the end of their life, they're capable of doing things that they couldn't do in the beginning. All of them start in the water, besides butterflies. Nymphs and tadpoles start in the water, but by the time they reach maturity, they're out above the water. So let's start. Actually, I want to see what both of these are. Buffonite. Oh, Buffonite. This is a toadstone. See, look. See, this time, I don't know if I've ever gotten just a straight up like, this is a bad dude, which I am totally cool with. Let's see if I can read this. Buffonite. Buffonite. This is a stone. It's a tool. Buffonite. The inspiration here says, perhaps there is no scientific basis for the claims that Buffonite is an antidote, let alone that it existed at all. Many Baphomet amulets were, in fact, fossilized fish heads, but as a metaphor, it is still quite powerful. Toads. I was just talking about frogs. Oh my gosh. Toads were often described as witches' familiars, and their skin was thought to be used in all manner of magical poisons. Yet from inside the head of those toads, folklore also invented a cure. The divination here is focus on finding worth and beauty in circumstances or items that others may regard as ugly. And I love that. And again, I feel like that tends to this mercy, this knowledge. So it brings in, especially I guess with the Knight of Wands, it brings in an energy of how we view ourselves. And it's fitting because in the movie, also, the girl holding a glass, she's like, these are my experiences. This is why I'm this way. Like, I'd rather, like, you know. And throughout the whole, not the whole movie, but there is the painter who's trying to capture her expression. It's interesting because in trying to capture her expression, he somehow ends up defining it by seeing the greater potential of it, right? It could be loss, it could be found, it could be despair, it could be overjoyed. Her expression changed. And so he was like, be brave, be courageous. And then she would go into her Nine of Swords mode with all of this, like, oh, it's not fair for him to say that. How dare he, like, meddle in our affairs? He doesn't know us, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, be brave, be courageous. And the girl holding a glass, again, to find out what that expression is, sometimes she had to challenge her own narrative. And it was a very Seven of Pentacles in reverse type of energy where, like, it was all of this. Where, again, it's like she had experienced what she experienced all of her life, and so she defined herself in a certain way. But here, it says that the antidote lies within the poison itself. Everything can be toxic in too high of a quantity, and even things that are medicinal. Like there's the minimum, is it the maximum effective concentration, or the maximum effective and the minimum toxic? Or maybe it's minimum effective and minimum toxic. It's like, let's say you have a wonder pill, right? If you take one wonder pill, it will cure anything. If you take two wonder pills, it'll kill you. And so, you know, that's the balance that you play. And I think that's the thing with like Tylenol, if I remember correctly, because it's like the recommended dose is between like 4 or 6 tablets, between 4 and 6 tablets. But if you take 8 tablets, like that's when it becomes not great. But also, with it being in the head, the cure lies in the mind. Here's the Nine of Swords. Then the mind is both the trap and your salvation. That's why a lot of mindfulness practices, or that's why a lot of practices sort of get you to first change the way that you interact with the world and the mind. Be that through an element of faith or belief or whatever. Because it's like once you concede yourself to your circumstances, you've locked yourself into whatever may come. But again, Spirit, with the Three of Wands, is trying to take you beyond your own limitations. And with the fourth one from the Knight right here, it's like Spirit has already sort of set up the altar. This is your journey to getting there. And when you get to the altar, someone, something else, your life will meet you there. Right? And also there's this energy, I guess, here, since we're talking about lighter influences and darker influences. When you make it there, your light makes it there, your shadow makes it there. All of you wed together to create this more fully realized being that is you, without the limitations and without the worries and the fears, without the need to prove anything if that's something that you've dealt with, without the need to diminish yourself and bleed into the or blend into the background if that's something that you've dealt with, but also without sort of like it brings everything into balance basically. Angel of Mercy. Let's read Zadkiel. Zadkiel, Angel of Mercy. The one who metes out forgiveness, and the one who judges transgression. Zadkiel is the swift gavel as well as the crushing hammer. Those who have sinned against your fellow man, Zadkiel may relieve you of your punishment, but in asking, you submit yourself to the scales of the angel's judgment and wrath. Zadkiel sees all the cracks and seams of the soul, finds all the things we cover up to convince ourselves of the illusion of a mortal existence. Zadkiel reminds us to reveal our failings openly and be judged by those that have the power to forgive. It is only the just who may make such reckoning. It's found in Scales, Rising Smoke, and a Gavel. I saw some Mikio yesterday, and I love that it says that it is only the just who may make such a reckoning. In Samikio, be careful to call down or to call upon the angel of vengeance, because for everyone that has wronged you, you have probably wronged someone else, and the angel of vengeance is one of a higher, like between the angel of vengeance, Mikiel, and Zadkiel, the angel of mercy, it's more universal, right? That's why it says that he who is without sin first, like, cast the throw. Let he who is without sin cast the first rock or something like that. Because as soon as you throw a rock at somebody else for sinning, you're going to catch a whole bunch of rocks yourselves. And that's a rock fight that you don't want to start. It's a game that everyone loses. This, in some way, is about taking yourself out of the game. And what's most interesting is that, like, there are certain... It brings a certain... the immune system of the body, an established tolerance. It's like you have to be exposed to something before it becomes a strength, really. Or you don't have to, right? But it increases your tolerance to the point where it doesn't affect you as much, and then you can turn that increased tolerance into a gift or an ability. It reminds me of one show. There's a character who's been basically electrocuted like all of his life, and it sucked. But then he developed a tolerance to electricity, and then later he turns that into his gift. But with the Nine of Swords, it's all about perspective. And also the thing with this Pride card, and the thing with alignment, or a malignment, or a misalignment, it feels like partially a negative self-fulfilling prophecy. It also feels like if you're looking for... whatever you're looking to be validated will be validated. In the past, though, it seems like there were not great things that you were looking to be validated, mostly against yourself. And so you found all the ways and all the reasons in which it's true. But again, with nature bringing death in reverse, with spirit bringing the Five of Wands, or the Three of Wands, sorry, it's trying to get you to grow beyond that. That's not, like, this forest is not her grave. She's just making her way through it. And that's a feature of this forest, right? It reminds me of the forest in the fog that came out last year. But those who navigate through it before it lifts, they will come into their own mastery. Bottom of the deck over here is Furfur. What is Furfur? I think... no, that was something else that causes the storms. Let's see. E, F, G. Here it is. Furfur is said to be able to create storms and tempests. Yeah, it is this one. Furfur is said to be able to create storms and tempests, incite passions, and cause lightning to strike and thunder to shake the land wherever the conjurer requests. It would seem that in conjunction with Furfur's rakish name, his gifts are rakish? His gifts are destructive and cruel. However, Furfur's other gift is the ability to strengthen the bond between married couples into something unbreakable and eternal. So we see that Furfur's gift for stirring passion and excitement can be used for destruction when used in excess, but it can be one of the most valuable tools when used in moderation. Of course, relationships should be built on trust that doesn't require a magical triangle, so Furfur's gift should be considered with judgment. There's judgment energy again. There's the Three of Wands, Ace of Wands through the night, through movement. This is a moving Ace of Wands that completes this sort of formulation and meets at the altar. That's that unbreakable eternal bond that forms. Also, it can come through in the area of a storm, but that's what storms do. The energy of the storm is one of purification, right? It doesn't rain to ruin your day, it rains to nourish the earth. And, you know, and I guess that's with this Seven of Pentacles in reverse, because the rain upright nourishes the earth. Seven of Pentacles upright understands that the rain is necessary to get the crops to grow. Seven of Pentacles in reverse, it's not that it doesn't necessarily understand, but it's focused elsewhere. Seven of Cups in reverse, it's focused elsewhere. That's interesting. That's what I was talking about, though. And again, like, something in moderation can be a medicine, but in excess, it can be toxic. Okay. Work. Come through. So, over here, we have the Hierophant. The Hierophant is about the system. The Hierophant is system, structures, organization. Again, with the Angel of Mercy and the Angel of Knowledge at the bottom of that deck, it's understanding the limitations of the system that were prevalent or that prevailed at the time. And that's why mercy is important. It's like, don't be so hard on yourself for not seeing what you didn't see. How would you have? Everything was sort of set up in a way in which you wouldn't. But now that you know better, you can do better. And again, it's that, like, isn't it nice to know a lot, but a little bit not? Because knowledge comes through experiences that aren't always great. Oh, look, there's the Devil. The Five of Swords. And the Strength card. Hey, I love that. Woo! That's this little journey here, right? The Devil, the Five of Swords, and the Strength card. This is us. I feel like, again, going off of that Seven of Pentacles in reverse energy. Also going back to the Devil. Oh! It was the Knight of Pentacles and the Knight of Cups. Yesterday, the Devil went for the Knight of Cups. Today, it's going for the Knight of Pentacles. Or the Knight of Wands. Or it came for the Knight of Wands, but the Knight of Wands is moving on. This is like those old... that old system, that old Hierophant system, also came with the Shadow. It was Hierophant in excess to the point where it impacted our ability to connect with the divine for ourselves. It put so many rules and limitations on connection that when it came to the divine, there would be those who would act severely to impede upon the liveliness, happiness, and longevity of others in the name of the very divine that they claim to serve. And a lot of those divines are about love. And so it's like, what love is telling you to go out there and, like, do this to other people? But with the Five of Swords here, that Five of Swords again mirroring back to the Five of Swords yesterday, and with the Five of Swords for a minute now. And again, it's a feature of this Angel of Mercy, because it's like in that old shadowy Hierophant system with so many rules and regulations and limitations, how would you have seen? And so the Five of Swords here, it's like in direct opposition to everything that old shadowy Hierophant energy, everything that you've been conditioned to believe against yourself. In direct opposition to that, it's like, no, like, I don't think that's it, and I'm actually going to, like, I'm not going to buy into that. And then you come into this strength. It's an internal strength that begins to mirror and reflect outwardly. And it's almost like in combining the star and the moon, you get an energy that can more fully interact with the sun. But the thing about the sun is that it's too big, it's too bright. We can't take in all of it at once or we'll get burned. And so there is a little bit of an hourglass energy here. That's why it tapers down and then it drips into the star, which then creates the moon. And going from the star to the moon, it brings that light even closer. That's the strength that we develop in direct opposition to this. And look, we have these oh my gosh, it's the same moon. How do I do this? We have the same moon in all three of these cards. Girl, if I can get it. Y'all see that? The same moon in all three of those. But under such limited light, you still find the source. And that's also why I feel like Spirit is as merciful as it is. And that's also why Spirit asks us to not throw stones at others. Now on this side, what card came out? The Two of Cups came out. And the Two of Cups, it's carrying an energy of when you really love someone and when you really get close to someone, that proximity, it can be a double-edged sword. Because the ones that we love the most are also the ones that can hurt us the most. And again, it's an energy that can either be toxic or medicinal, depending on how it's used. But the vulnerability is going to be required. So here, it's the 8 of Coins, where we had the 7 here. The 10 of Swords, where we have the 9 of Swords here. And the 8 of Cups, where we have the 7 of Cups here. So there's the 8 of Coins and the 8 of Cups, with the 10 of Swords in the middle. This is us reaching that point. And again, it takes me back to the Traveling Gnome, where we have to reach that minor death, that 10 of Swords death, before things begin to change on the outside. When we take this 9 of Swords to the 10 of Swords, when we take the transformation that nature is offering us right here, and we flip that upright, everything else flips upright. That's when 7 of Swords, it turns from an energy of illusion to an energy of limitless opportunity. And they're all good. You just pick one, right? One isn't necessarily better than the other, and in some way, shape, or form, especially with this 8 of Coins, you may find yourself working to all of them eventually. So it's don't get too hung up on the order or whatever. But again, with this 10 of Swords, it requires it. And again, going off of this 2 of Cups, the things that can grow us the most can also hurt us the most through lack of that opportunity or through its absence. But it's not to be caught up in the anxiety of how it can hurt us. It's about shifting our perspective in the ways that it grows us and the joy that it brings us and the shifting, changing dynamic. It's about coming out of wintertime and coming fully into spring. And that's, I guess, like I said, I don't want to spoil the movie, but real life isn't a movie, right? A movie is scripted. In your life, you make your choices. And it can feel scripted, especially with the Hierophant and this devil energy. It can feel scripted. It can feel like everything was sort of there are so many choices and decisions that you didn't necessarily make when you come here. There are so many things outside of your control. But with this 5 of Swords and the Strength card, it's not about trying to control the things that you can't control. Through the space of the Hierophant and in some ways the devil, it's about strengthening your relationship in the divine to give yourself the foundation. It's like that 4 of Swords energy. It was in reverse at the bottom of this deck, but upright, it gives yourself the ability to find the light in any space and to anchor yourself regardless of what happens in the energy that you want to continue to cultivate and create. And it's almost this energy of like it's almost impossible. Not impossible. It's difficult to not be a magician. But a lot of times we work against ourselves in ways, or we hold on to certain tools that don't serve us. And so, also at the same time, we would hope that we're not the one that's really hurting us. But we don't necessarily see how we contribute to us staying where it is that we don't desire. And that's why all of this is about shifting and changing and growing and evolving. I don't know if going from a tadpole to a frog, from a caterpillar to a butterfly, or from a nymph to a dragonfly is painful. But even we as humans can experience growing pains, right? Baby's teeth, because it hurts when you got some teeth coming out of your gums. But with teeth, you can tear apart, you can grind and mash things that you can't without them. And now you don't need baby food where everything is pre-mashed. Now you can go out into the world and you can use your own anatomy and physiology to interact with the world in a way that nourishes and supports you, in which you couldn't do before. And that's also, like, that energy is also coming in with this Five of Swords. Because Spirit is also like, we're not giving you baby food anymore. And if you feel like you're a little bit more lost or abandoned, or if you feel that things are quiet, then maybe for a second think about or realize how dependent you were in some way. And again, that's the shadow side of Hierophant energy, when we overly rely on it to make choices and decisions that we need to make, to the point where we're not growing in the ways that we need to grow. We're just regurgitating things. And it's about growth and evolution and change. So that's what I got. I hope you have a good whatever whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make it even better. There is a fairly consistent theme here, but again, I'm not surprised. I'll catch y'all tomorrow with part 3. Which, let me get my phone. Next is the ghost of the phone booth. Okay. The girl with the glass of water is today. The ghost of the phone booth is tomorrow. The ghost of the phone booth is actually interesting, especially coming off of the traveling gnome into the girl with the glass of water, because the ghost of the phone booth was like, we hold this certain there's something indescribable that happens, or something that happens that we don't know the answer to, and we come up with a solution, and then we find out whether or not we were correct. And a lot of times when we find out whether or not we're right, we don't necessarily come upon that information intentionally. It happens accidentally, right? And then when we're confronted with that, we can decide whether or not we want to accept the truth in front of us, or we want to continue to buy into the narrative that we created to explain it away. So I'll see y'all here for that tomorrow. Bye.